Do I have a quorum? 1, 2, 3, 4 of us. Nope, not yet. I need one more person. Okay. I haven't heard from anybody that they're not coming, so I'm just assuming it takes them a couple minutes to get here.
Oops.
There we go. Okay, we're all set.
Okay, guys.
You
Have a
want
good meeting. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, it is 8:31 according to my computer, and we have a quorum, and I am going to call the meeting to order. Okay, and for those of you who may have not been here when Jose came on, Jose had a minor stroke a few days ago, and he's okay. He just is, you know, he's got the recuperative process now. So he started the meeting for us, and I'm winging it. So be kind to me, okay? We'll see how things go. Denise is my co-host. All right. Let's give it another minute or so and see what. Look, I know that Lenny is usually late, and I think that Nye has to take her kids to school, so she may also be a couple minutes late. But I will call the meeting to order, and I will confirm that we have a quorum. The consent agenda, we do not have anything from staff. Obviously, this was kind of a last minute thing that happened. I heard from Jose over the weekend. Did anyone have any questions or comments about the consultant report? Okay, if not, I will ask that someone make a motion to approve.
What are we approving, Bonnie?
We are approving the monthly written report for the consultant consent agenda.
So moved, Bonnie.
Okay, second?
Support.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there we go. Okay, on to the minutes of April 13th. Has everyone had a chance to read them? And if so, I will accept a motion to approve them.
I have a comment.
Okay, you want to make a motion and then we'll get the comment?
Sure.
Okay.
I would be making a motion to correct them. I would provide the correction. And if those corrections are agreed upon, then move to approve.
Okay, I'll take a second on that.
Second.
Jerry, thank you. Okay, Michelle, go ahead.
Okay, the only thing on page 4 with regard to the discussion about moving forward with ordinance review, which the commission agreed to do, that action is not reflected in the minutes. And also the action that I proposed from the standpoint of myself volunteering to contact the town manager to set up a meeting to discuss the matter is also missing. And just parenthetically, the matter is missing from old business because Mr. Shank, myself, the chair, actually did meet on this and I have a report to give. So that's parenthetical. But what I would like to have amended in the minutes is the fact that the commission took action to continue with ordinance review and that a meeting was in the works with town manager.
Do you remember, does anyone remember the vote on that? Do you remember by any chance, Michelle? I don't know if it matters.
It was unanimous.
It was unanimous. Okay, fine.
If I may, and Michelle, I think that's accurate that we said we would continue to review the concept of ordinance review. There was no vote that of the commission that said we will continue that as a function of the commission, unless anyone recollects to the contrary. I think, to be clear, we were saying we would continue to look at the concept of ordinance review, but not necessarily that that is a function of our commission.
I realize that that was discussed, but I guess that's the main reason that I'm bringing forward the fact that the action is not reflected. And if whoever reviews the minutes can look at that language, I will agree to however the motion was made, that that's how it should be stated, but it is missing.
Okay, Joyce.
Agreed.
Okay, and Michelle, Joyce just commented that she thought she'd put it in there. maybe she deleted it, trying to make everything shorter. And I asked her to please review and amend, and then get back to us.
Well, the most important thing in any minutes is that all actions are reflected. That's number one. So if we
Okay.
can look at the action from the tape and find out what the specific motion and approval was, I'm in agreement with that.
Oh,
But we
Alexi, you
can
wanna
be
do that?
testing the memory.
Michelle, you want to do that? And we'll hold off approving the minutes till next meeting till we get that
Fine.
information? Okay, let's do that then. I'm doing dual functions here, so bear with me. Okay. Okay, thank you. I think everybody, all right, here we go. All right. Okay, Joyce said she'll revisit it. Any public comment? No, seeing none. I will go forward. The referral regarding the tax abatement request for 175, 185 West Newberry Road. I was hoping Mike might be joining us because I'd like to have his input on this as well, but
Mike is on.
Mike is on, okay.
Yeah.
Why am I not
He
seeing-
shows up as Robert Goman.
Okay, so do I need to promote him?
Yep, you need to promote him.
Okay, there we go, allow to talk. Okay, there we go. Good morning, Mike. Please
Good morning.
unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think
just
I'm
gonna make
unmuted.
this-
Am I unmuted?
Yeah, I'm just gonna make this comment one more time about Jose. Jose is not with us today because he has had a minor stroke. He's gonna be fine, but he needs to rest. So that's why I'm winging it myself this morning.
For a guy who's supposed to be resting, he sure is communicating a
know.
lot.
Yeah.
That's why I strongly suggested he get the hell off. And
I'm with you on that.
yeah, but I also understand. I mean, he's feeling pretty good too, so I'm glad to see that.
Agreed.
Okay. We have been asked to look at this proposal for a, sorry about that, excuse me. We were asked to look at this proposal with the potential of recommending a tax abatement. And I don't quite understand how we can be asked to do that if we don't know what the business is going to be that's going to be occupying the building. So Mike, that was just basically my question. Is this proper that they asked for this when all they're talking about is the building that they're potentially going to rent?
This is the first I saw of this was when the agenda was circulated the other day with the agenda packet. So should I wait for Bonnie to come back?
Okay.
I'll wait for Bonnie to come back, I guess.
Okay. This is the EDC. I can't. Okay, I'm sorry. All right. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mike, what'd you say?
So I was just saying that the first I saw this was the other day when the agenda packet was circulated. I've had a quick look at it. There's nothing unusual in any of the numbers or the site plan or the elevation. I haven't actually seen what they're asking for. So
Okay, well, they're here and they're saying that they are that their anticipated tenant is Pepperidge Farm. So I guess I'll
heard
have
that.
them on and talk to us and make the
Sure.
presentation.
I'd like to hear the request, I guess. I don't know what abatement they're looking for. So the details.
Okay. All right, I'm going to make them participants, let them come on.
Hello, my name is Jacqueline Bart. I'm from GFI Partners. We are the developer of the West Newberry space. I know Jose is out, so I apologize if you're just kind of getting up to speed now. He had instructed us to pull together a presentation for you all. So I have that ready to go if you'd like to move forward with it. And we can give you a little bit more detail around our plan and our proposed tenant, who is Pepperidge Farm.
I have no problem moving forward. Does anyone else have an issue on the commission? Okay, go for it.
Awesome. I think it would be helpful if I could gain access to share my screen. We do have a little PowerPoint.
Okay.
I don't know if I can do that.
I don't know how to do that.
You should be able to give her control to
Any idea how I
Yeah.
do it?
let me see. Hang on.
I've never done, unfortunately.
Hang on.
Okay.
It's a learn as we go. I'm used to Zoom. I'm not used to this one. You should be able to promote her to a panelist,
Here we go. Okay.
and then she can share the screen.
Okay. I think it's here, actually. Let's share it.
Yeah.
Okay, I think, are you able to do that now?
No, that's sharing your screen.
Sharing my screen. That didn't work too well. Okay. Well, at least I got it to share. Okay, so I've got.
If you promote her to a panelist, I believe she will
I
gain
thought I
to
did.
share her screen.
Okay, all right, let me do that. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Hi there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you making this work for us, and we'll try to move quickly. I know your time is valuable. So let me see if this works.
That's
All right, can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay, so before we get started, let me see if I can. All right. So before we dive in, I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Jacqueline Bart. I am a project manager here at GFI Partners. And as I mentioned, we are the developer of the property at 177 West Newbury Road in Bloomfield. And we're just really excited to be a part of the community and talk to you all this morning. So thank you again. First, what I'll do is I'll tell you a little bit about us as a developer. I'll go into the project a bit to give you some more detail around it. And then I will introduce Pepperidge Farm, who is our anticipated end user of the site. And we'll open it up for any questions you have at the end. And I also have Haley Marsh, who is the VP of Development, who will be joining us as well. I don't know if it's possible to give her permission as well to speak, but I can run the presentation.
I think I gave all three of you, I think I promoted all three of you, but I'll take a look again. Go ahead.
Oh,
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so I'll dive in now and we can take any questions at the end. So we are GFI Partners. We are a full service real estate developer based in Boston, Massachusetts. We were founded in 1997, and we have been investing in communities all over the country, including over 15 million square feet of real estate across all asset classes. Our current portfolio includes over 10 million square feet of commercial space, and we've been an active investor in Connecticut for just about 20 years. And here's an idea of some of the spaces we're working on throughout New England. Particularly, we have a development underway in Stratford, Connecticut. If you'd like to look into any of these projects a little bit more, you can hop onto our website, and I can also follow up with this group with some more information if you're interested, but that'll just give you an idea of some of the projects we have going. So this project on West Newbury Road is very exciting to us. We purchased the land in May of 2018. The approved redevelopment consists of a Class A, just about 157,000 square foot modern high bay warehouse and distribution building. When we purchased this land, it sat pretty much undeveloped, except for some small residential structures that have since been condemned. For a period of time, the property suffered from neglect, and it had kind of become a dumping ground for waste and hazardous materials. So we spent a decent amount of time and invested $100,000 into cleaning up the space and making it ready for redevelopment. And ultimately, once we get underway, we hope to employ about 80 skilled tradesmen for the production of this space. So here's a look as you all can see, the current Pepperidge Farm facility is somewhat close. This is where our project will be. And moving right along, this is the plan that was approved back in 2018 with the town of Bloomfield. You might have some questions about this. We're happy to answer them later on, but this is what we're working with. We're extremely excited, and we are excited most of all to talk about our potential end user, which is Pepperidge Farm. Many of you might know Pepperidge Farm. They've been in Bloomfield for about 18 years on 1414 Blue Hill Avenue. They currently employ 300 full-time employees and 70 part-time staff members on a seasonal basis. And just this year alone, they produced approximately 90 million pounds of finished products. So stuffing, bread, baked goods, things like that. And I don't know about you, but I'm a huge stuffing fan with Thanksgiving dinner. So very grateful for all the work that Pepperidge Farm does to provide that. So basically our goal here is to kind of help Pepperidge Farm expand by giving them space in our site to use as storage so that they can continue to grow their operation in Bloomfield, giving them more space to do so. And as I said, I have Kyle Douglas on the line with me to answer any questions pertaining to the growth of Pepperidge Farm or just their initial plan moving forward. So we can get to that at the end if you have them.
Jacqueline, excuse me, could you, Denise, I, for some reason, am no longer the host. Could you promote both of those folks to participant, please, to panelists? You're muted, Denise.
I'm trying to figure it out. I lost part of my screen here.
Okay, and for some reason, I'm not the host. You're the host. I'm not the co-host any longer. Maybe that's because we're sharing screens. I don't know, but
It might be. I can't seem to get into it. I apologize. Like I said, I'm not used to Zoom.
Good morning,
That's okay.
Douglas, can you hear me?
yes.
Hey, Kyle. Yep.
Hi, glad you can hear me. I'm the plant controller at the Pepperidge Farm facility at 1414 Blue Hills Avenue. Just wanted to say hi. We're really excited about this opportunity. I think this will be a great thing for our operation. Please let me know if you have any specific questions on what we plan to do with the site. It's primarily storage for us, for our stuffing operation. We build a lot of inventory over the course of the year and ship all of it out at basically leading up to the Thanksgiving holiday. So it'll primarily be storage for that. We'll also have storage for some raw materials and things there as well. About maybe 10% of the space will actually be what we call a depot operation. Currently, we have a depot in Hartford. We plan to actually consolidate that into this space. The depot is really used for distribution of our fresh bakery products, which basically get delivered in store 5 to 6 days a week by independent distributors. So we're really just trying to make use of that space and capitalize off of it here as well. This really is going to help us kind of further grow our stuffing operation. It'll allow us to pull some of that volume, that stuffing that is actually made by a co-manufacturer, meaning a third party, back into the Bloomfield plant here. So it'll boost our production output. It's really just about supporting that, through better and more storage capability.
So this is in addition to the facility you use now?
Yes, we have a manufacturing facility now. It's about 270,000 square feet, but it actually has zero storage whatsoever. We have it has zero storage for stuffing, meaning dry goods. We have a small warehouse that we use for fresh bakery products primarily, but there's no stuffing stored there whatsoever. So right now we store our stuffing in a third-party warehouse that we're actually getting out of basically around the corner the other way at 95 West Dudley Town Road. That location is only like 56,000 square feet, however. So this would basically double the storage capabilities that we would have here at the plant. So you can imagine that gives us the opportunity to produce a heck of a lot more product here. So.
Thank you, Kyle. We have one more slide here, and if Haley Marsh from the GFI team is able to unmute, I'm going to kick it off to her
Jackie, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Jackie, Kyle, Bonnie, the chair, and the rest of the committee for welcoming us today. We took a look at Bloomfield's tax incentive policy that Jose sent over to us. And based on the goals of the policy, GFI believes that we're 100% compliant with the goals of the tax incentive program. A few of the cases for this is that the new facility will retain an existing business in Bloomfield and meet their expansion needs. The project will include an investment into the town of over $15 million. Pepperidge Farm, one of the highlights of Pepperidge Farm as we start to kind of dig into their company and spoke more with Kyle is they probably offer higher wages than most local employers in the area, with entry-level positions starting at $17.40 an hour and ranging up to $45 an hour. What we're asking of the town, based on some of the market conditions and comparable warehouses in Windsor and Bloomfield, annual taxes per square foot are ranging between $1.15 and $1.28 per square foot. Based on this $15 million value, we found that taxes would be well over $2 a square foot, making it very difficult for farm to expand their existing business. We were proposing a 5-year abatement schedule, beginning at 50% and running 50% for all 5 years, and believe that this is really kind of more in line with an acceptable rate for the anticipated end user. So that's our ask from the committee here today, and thank you again to Jackie for the full presentation, and I'm happy to answer any other questions regarding this.
Thank you, Haley. Any questions of Haley before we go back to the presentation?
Bonnie, a couple of quick questions directed at Haley or either of the other two, Jacqueline or Kyle. Let me shift it. Is there a long-term lease, or what is the plan with Pepperidge Farm? As we have reviewed tax abatements in the past, they tend to be owner occupants, but what we'd like to know, obviously long-term, is will Pepperidge Farm be committing longer than the 5 years?
Bob, I would be happy to answer that question. Thank you. This is Haley Marsh. Pepperidge Farm is committed to being in the warehouse for a long-term period of time, past the 5 years, with options to extend further. As Kyle mentioned, this is really an opportunity for Pepperidge Farm, a business that's been in Bloomfield for over 18 years, to continue to stay in Bloomfield and grow. So, the expectation is they'll be there for beyond 5 years, but, who's to say that that wouldn't continue even longer? So it's definitely an expectation that they would be here beyond the 5 years and potentially take even more space.
Thank you. And one very quick follow-up question. Kyle, because we do, as most towns, also tax equipment and personal property, will Pepperidge Farm be maintaining any significant personal property on the site?
No, it'll primarily be storage of products, finished goods, and some raw materials.
Okay, so the tax abatement is only for the real estate.
Yeah, there may be some small pieces of equipment or spare parts and things that we store to support the operation.
Understood. Yeah, no manufacturing or industrial base. Thank you.
No problem.
Will this be creating new jobs?
It will not directly be creating new jobs. We will not be adding jobs to cover this particular facility. However, it's part of a larger growth plan that we have for the Bloomfield manufacturing location. So we, like I mentioned before, we make most of the stuffing for the entire country. However, we do use a third-party co-manufacturer to produce some of the stuffing that essentially we just can't produce right now. And we don't have the place to actually store it. So the long-term plan for the facility is, in addition to securing more storage space to make more product, we're also investing in the manufacturing operation itself. So just in the last 6 months, we spent $1 million and put in a new stuffing bagger that allows us to actually bag stuffing faster. That also boosts the output. So, that coupled with a couple of other things that we're planning on doing over the next 2 years or so should allow us to produce significantly more product, which then further off down the line, we can start making the case that, hey, look, we're right now, we run 3 shifts about 8 to 9 months out of the year. Maybe we need to bump that up to 12 months out of the year. That means that we basically now have a fully crewed 3 shifts for 12 months out of the year. There are additional jobs that would be associated with that. Again, we're further off down the line. This storage location is really just a part of that larger plan, but that's what we're looking to do. So,
okay, Bob, piggybacking on your question, as I'm going through the information that was sent to us under 7 benefits to the town, I have something here that estimated that once fully occupied, the property will have 100 to 150 new FTE jobs. So you're saying there aren't any new jobs being created?
No, we don't have any plans to add new jobs to staff this facility. We're transferring the existing jobs over to that. Any new jobs that we add further off down the line as part of a longer term plan will actually be at the Bloomfield facility around the corner. And there would be more like manufacturing jobs.
FTE refers to what, please?
Full-time
equivalents, I'm assuming.
Okay.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, Bonnie, but there also might, so I'm not sure if I assume Jose didn't give the background, which is totally understandable, but we were planning to go in front of the board earlier, I believe last month. So there might have been a document that you're looking at that would have been revised this time around. So I apologize if there's something in there that might not line up with this presentation.
Okay, so there are no immediate plans for full-time jobs once this facility is built. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the commissioners?
Is there a plan to use minority contractors in developing this?
Jerry, this is Haley Marsh, Vice President of Development. We're in the bidding process right now. It's an open bid, and we welcome all bids for the construction process. We do this in an open book, and we're happy to speak to anybody.
And Haley, have you made any plans? Have you talked to anybody at town to talk about having a potential job fair specifically for the local businesses?
No, Bonnie, not yet. We're happy to get involved with that. Certainly, this is kind of our first step, meeting with the town as far as economic development goes and really getting kickstarted on the project.
Okay, we strongly recommend you do something like that. This has been an issue that we have ongoing and we understand it, but partly we need help. We need to be able to help our local business people to be able to qualify to bid, and that seems to be the biggest issue we have. So anything that you can do to help with that would be appreciated as this goes forward. Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners?
Yes.
Yes, Michelle?
Jacqueline, I think that if I understood you correctly, you referred to a document that commissioners have in their possession. It's simply entitled 177195 West Newberry Road, Bloomfield Tax Abatement Program Application Supporting Information. Was this information compiled by your organization?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was. And it was when we were going to go in front of the committee last month. We did not have our end user in place yet. So you all also got materials last month as well. So there could have been a switch up, and I want to make sure that you have the right files in front of you. So I apologize if there was some confusion.
Well, I guess in answer to that, it sounds like, I don't know how significant the additions and or amendments were, but we don't have those documents. So
okay.
That makes it a little bit more difficult. But nonetheless, I will ask you the questions that I have, hopeful that some of the information has been determined in the interim. At the point that this document was written, I didn't have the understanding that Pepperidge Farms owns the site, but you indeed own the site, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And from the standpoint of what happened with regard to the environmental cleanup, and I congratulate you or anyone who does that, it's quite an undertaking. I understand that you state that $100,000 was paid in order to accomplish this. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Did you have state of Connecticut help with regard to brownfield funding or funding from anyone else to help you effectuate that cleanup?
Michelle, I can answer that question. We did not. GFI actually, whether we'd like to admit it or not, specializes in brownfield development. We have a lot of experience with this, so we engaged a certified LSP to help come up with a RAM plan and you know what to do with the contaminated soils. So no, there was no state funding for this cleanup.
Okay, so do you have DEEP documentation with regard to the fact that your site is considered acceptably cleaned up at this point?
Yes, we would be able to provide any of that documentation for you.
Okay, do you have monitoring requirements after the fact?
Not to my knowledge. I can confirm that following this meeting, but no, I do not believe there's any further cleanup required.
Okay, so there was a general statement about dumping being accomplished on the site, and I'm not seeking to participate in a whodunit, but I guess I just want to know over time who gave approval to deposit materials on that site, whether they were contaminated or not. Do you have any record of that?
So we do not. We purchased the property in 2018, kind of an as-is condition. There were 2 residential homes that occupied the property, you know, the land then. Assuming that it was probably the residents that were living inside of those 2 homes, but we don't really know where the dumping came from.
Okay, and do you know what was dumped?
Well, I can tell you, one of our contractors found a old van, a large bus, just a lot of trash and metals, and I can get a more detailed description of that if you wish, but I know it was just a lot of you know, trash that built up.
Not necessary, but I would be looking to have attached to the application the DEP documentation of how they assess the work that you did and the status of it. That would be very helpful. And then another question that I had, I believe you have answered that the site will primarily be used for warehousing and distribution. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And then you further explained with regard to no new employees will be added, and you gave your rates. Is healthcare included in that rate of pay per hour?
Kyle, I would look to you for that answer.
So
Healthcare is not included. That's just gross wages to the employee.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Healthcare is not included in that.
Okay, okay. So when you say that your request is for a 50% abatement, you're talking about a 50% abatement for this site only, not for the original site. Is that correct?
That's correct. This site only is what we're here talking about today.
Okay. So moving on, some of these questions you have asked. The documentation that you gave, and I don't know if it's still correct or has been amended, shows that the previous property owner had accrued an unpaid tax balance. Can you give us the status of whether or not those taxes have been paid to the town of Bloomfield?
Yes, ma'am. All taxes have been paid to the town of Bloomfield before we purchased the property.
Okay, that's great, because that's not reflected in here. Let's see. On unnumbered page 2, when you say that you cannot predict the exact makeup, diversity, or geographic location of the employees of prospective tenants, this is pretty much not applicable if you're not going to hire any new employees, isn't it?
That is correct.
Okay, well, that should also, if these things haven't been corrected, this corrected documentation should be resubmitted to the town.
Absolutely.
Under D, following that, the statement is not a complete thought. I would expect that these industries be identified, number one. Number two, could this building be considered, from your perspective, a spec building? In other words, if Pepperidge Farms doesn't occupy it, someone else will. Are you going to build it anyway?
We at this time, we have a commitment from Pepperidge Farm. So we're building it for them. I think originally it was thought of as a spec building, but we wouldn't build a spec building unless we lease it. And that's the plan moving forward.
Okay. And one other question that I didn't ask prior with regard to your cleanup. Were you required by DEP to have a site water quality action plan as a result of this cleanup?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, so you don't have a monitoring requirement either then?
No.
Okay. The main concerns that I have about this information is in the incompleteness of the application. It's very difficult for us to make an evaluation if we don't have all the information. And asking for the information that should be submitted with the application makes it very difficult to make decisions. And I don't know about anybody else, but I don't like making decisions on the spot without the opportunity to look at the most current information from the standpoint of a consideration. So add one more thing, that it's interesting to see Pepperidge Farms expanding. I happen to be the proud owner of an original Margaret Rutherford Pepperidge Farms cookbook. And her original philosophy about how to prepare and provide food is still very impressive after all these years. So I will take your matter under consideration, but I do have some reservations about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. Anyone else?
Yes,
Yes.
if I might, Bonnie, I'd like to just follow up a little bit on what Michelle was talking about, because in reviewing our own regulations, one of the things I've been looking for, and I don't think I've seen it, is a cost benefit analysis to the town of Bloomfield versus our costs. I think this would certainly qualify, but I think we need to see that in order to adequately assess a tax abatement. And I would add that to Michelle's list.
Okay. I agree with you, Steve. Anything else, Steve?
No, that's it. That's it.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, if not, I will take comments from the public, if there are any at this point. Just raise your hand. Okay, Kevin? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I just wanted to make the comment that I'm very happy to hear the Commissioner Zellman and the chair's comment about cost benefit analysis, because that's one of the major things that I think needs to be pointed out and looked at in any kind of evaluation of this kind of project. So I'm very glad to hear that, and hope to see that, I guess, before this committee takes any kind of action. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for the comment. Okay, Commission. If I'm sensing the consensus, I think we're saying that we're not able or willing to make any decisions right now because we really have incomplete information. I don't know what your time frame is to go forward with this, Jacqueline, but if you want to give us the additional information and come back next month, we'd be happy to talk to you again. The cost benefit analysis is part of what we're looking for, and certainly we would like a revised packet. I'm a little concerned that we don't have it, but again, this has been very disruptive. What's just happened with our town planner. So are you,
Sure.
Your thoughts?
I would be happy to submit an updated packet. I believe there was a little bit of a miscommunication, and seeing that Jose was out, it was difficult to make sure that he had the correct document in front of him. But I'm currently looking at the one that you all should have in front of you. So, I'll go through it with my team and add the remainder of the information that you all brought to our attention that needs to be added to it. And we'll make sure that you have the correct document in front of you.
And once you have that in advance, I will put you on the agenda for the June meeting.
And Bonnie,
Perfect.
if
Yep.
I may, speaking for all of the commission, there were numerous questions relating to your sign-offs on the environmental. So although that may not have been part of your original package, Jacqueline, if you would give us in some fashion, Haley or Jacqueline, the official sign-offs, what level clearance you got. Certainly don't need to give us all the paperwork on what you did on the site, but the actual outcome, phase 2, that kind of thing, your sign off that you don't have ongoing monitoring responsibilities, and that would give us some comfort as well.
Sure, we'd be happy to provide that to you.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the commission? Okay, hearing none, thank you folks very much for the presentation. Pepperidge Farm has been a good corporate citizen over the years, and hopefully this is something, once we have the information, that we can give you a informed decision on.
Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Right now, Denise, you're no longer host, is that right? I'm the only host. Can you go back to being host again, or do
I can't. We lost internet here in the office, so I'm working off a hotspot on my phone right now.
Okay, how do I change the attendees back? The panel.
I just go onto the panel view on the side, and there's like a more button, and you can stop.
I'm actually not there now. Let's take a look. Okay, they're gone. We're all set. They've left.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay, Kyle, you look like you're still there. Are you still there?
I am. Do you need me for anything else?
I don't. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Have a good one.
Okay. Okay. All righty. So that will be deferred until the June meeting, and as soon as we get the information, we will distribute it to everybody. The next conversation is regarding permitted uses in the new commercial C zoning district. Did everybody have a chance? I didn't know if anyone had the information from the last, I think we had it at the last meeting. I know I had it. I sent it out again last night. I apologize for being so late. Does everybody have the information? And if so, are you prepared to have a discussion about this? And if not, do you want to defer this to the next meeting? Okay. Michelle, you're muted. You have to unmute, dear. Okay. Yes,
I would just like to add that if we are planning on carrying this over to the next meeting, which I would agree we should do, there should be some effort, unless it has already been sent out and I didn't receive it, I don't know, with regard to what is existing in the commercial district versus what is proposed. And why this is being brought forward. That can help explain why the changes are being proposed, why the amendments are needed. And rather than looking at something that is piecemeal, to understand how the process is amended would be a great help. The other thing is the great variance of uses that are included in proposed uses and structures is so wide. And one thing that is really missing with regard to putting those things together into a cohesive policy is the fact that adjacency issues are pretty much ignored. And what this comes down to is a rather basic explanation of why our town can look like it does, and particularly of interest to the EDC in the downtown central business district. Because although you need to find a space for these businesses to exist, and we wish to promote them for sure, they are not all compatible with each other. So in reading this, it makes me wonder how some of them are even included in here under a general category, rather a specific one. Many ordinances have such things as personal service designations that are separate and apart, so that in not only a plan of development, but in a master plan, a town can decide what needs to go where and what fits where. So just this information brings forward many, many questions. I don't know if anybody has that same response that I do, but I would be looking for at least a historic explanation of why we're being asked to do this and what prompted it. That might help.
Okay. Phil, I don't know if you have any background. I had a conversation with Jose about this. And in fact, I think he talked to us about it when the Bloom Farm presentation was made to us. Do you have anything you want to add to it, or should I try and answer?
Well, other than the things that I just mentioned, that would be.
Well, no. What I'm saying, Michelle, is if I remember correctly, what Jose said to us was that the commercial zone designation was something that the Noble Gas folks had asked to be approved, and then once that was approved, they were going to use it to try to apply for use of that site. Am I correct about that?
I don't know that. So I can't answer you.
Yeah, I know. This is what happens when we have no redundancy in a department. Phil, can you unmute?
No.
How's that?
Yeah. Do you have any?
No, I think this is a predecessor issue based upon the Bloom Hill farm property. I mean, I would just table it until the next meeting when you can get some more information if you want concerning it. I think Michelle is probably correct in looking at it on a broader basis. But again, the EDC, you're an advisory committee. Certainly, you can go ahead and do whatever you wish. But I would just table the matter until you can get a better reading from Jose in detail, probably next month.
And Jose specifically did say, Michelle and Phil, that we should take a look at it, that he just basically took the I-1 zone, I guess, or the I-2, whichever is the broader zone, and just transferred it over, and then expected we would then take a look at the uses and make recommendations. So he knows
well,
to have.
I think you need to be very, my opinion is that you need to be very cautious in just changing these zones around and the definitions that go in them, because they have all kinds of ramifications down the road, depending upon, as you know, situations that arise and whatnot. So I think zoning changes have always been in the land use business something that's looked at very carefully, detailed, and not designed to fit the one-up that comes down the road. So I would just take a longer look at it, look at the potential implications of it, and put it on next month's agenda. I wouldn't, I'd just table it, or let him, not even put it on the next month's agenda, leave it the way it is. And if it comes back up again, you can look at it in more detail at that point.
I think I would respond that I'm in agreement with Phil, but for a different reason, because Phil's talking about zoning issues. I entirely agree with what he said. But when we are talking about use specified categories, then we're talking about something else entirely. And we're also talking about a broad-based regulation that anytime somebody wants to do something different, they just amend it.
Right, and I'm not comfortable with doing that.
No, I agree with that.
It needs to be looked at very carefully in terms of the history of the area, the long-term potential of what the town may be looking at. It has to be tied into the comprehensive plan of development, or should be anyway, in terms of, and I'm not a obstructionist here in the sense that you can't change things. And I think the comprehensive plan of development is a foundation. It's not and there may be some differences of opinion here, a rigid regulation, but it does bear a considerable amount of caution, review, and introspective look at what we want to do in the community.
Well, I would suggest then, Bonnie, that I would move in view of the status of the previously mentioned development proposal that we table the review of this pending additional research, if it is designated acceptable or relevant to the EDC.
Okay, the only thing I would comment is I think that this also ties into this conversation we've had for a couple of years now about uses that we want to encourage by tax abatement, which we really didn't talk about today either.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think this may be a special meeting where we have just a discussion of this alone, but yeah, let's table it for now. And I'll accept your motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair says aye. All right, thank you. Okay, old business, public art and other initiatives. Bob, anything going on right now?
Well, I have a very, as is usually the case, a very brief report. The Arts Commission is moving along very, very slowly at about the pace that oil paint dries, which is, as you probably all know, never. But I did interview with the committees in the last month, and my application is pending. I can report on a positive note that several other applicants also appeared, and there are multiple slots on the commission, obviously. People who are quite well qualified and very diverse, both in terms of their backgrounds and their artistic qualifications. So that's very encouraging. I have heard nothing further. And I believe once we have a full commission in place, and unfortunately, and I'll make no political comment here, there are slots open for Republican designees on the commission, and no Republicans applied yet. So they are out looking. If anyone knows, if they haven't filled those slots, if anyone knows of people who are registered Republicans who would be qualified artistic background commissioners, please let me or the committee know. So that's moving along and encouraging, but obviously until we have a fully functioning commission, I believe one of the first things we'll do is to do an inventory and a poll, as we have been talking about now for quite some time at our commission. So that's it on the arts. I do have a, excuse me, a minor side note, which will be encouraging to the commission not related to arts. As you all know, I sit on the allocation committee for the Hartford Foundation Bloomfield Fund, and we have just, as of last week, made our decisions, which are not yet announced, but several of the grants that we are making are to plant trees in the town of Bloomfield. So that's a positive note that I know everyone on the commission here is interested in. So that is moving along. And that's my report today.
Okay, and Bob, Kevin just gave me a note that you and a number of other people were appointed last night.
I'm
Bill?
sorry?
Bob just gave me a note. Bill, do you want to comment on that?
No, not in detail. I don't have the listing right in front of me, but the council did appoint 4 members, including Bob, to the Arts Commission last evening at their meeting.
All right. I have not
Congratulations, Bob.
heard that as yet, but thank you.
Okay, any questions for Bob? From the commission? No? Okay. Moving on to the COVID-19 town policy update, Michelle?
Okay, first I want to read into the record the fact that on April 30th, Jose, Phil, Bonnie, and myself met to discuss the building maintenance for residential and commercial properties ordinance review proposal. And the things that we just generally discussed were how the town's appearance reflects code performance, both in residential and commercial zones. Some of the areas that we talked about were the Bloomfield hardware store and general maintenance and housekeeping situations with regard to how our compliance deals with them and how they could be improved. I brought along an ordinance that I thought did apply, that another community has used with regard to exterior maintenance code, and that is from the city of Avon Lake, Ohio. So we did discuss that. And there will be further review with regard to compliance issues that Jose is going to provide when he can, and a lot of information about how this should actually work and the challenges to it, not only from the standpoint of person power, but cost and what we actually want to achieve being spelled out in certain terms, was provided by Phil. So we are going to be meeting again when we can do so. So I did want to let everyone know that that meeting did take place. Then putting on the COVID-19 continuing and reopening issues, the committee did meet and want to provide you with a little bit of information with regard to the status of the town of Bloomfield's program. The first dose of vaccinations has been provided to 55.72% of Bloomfield. The fully vaccinated reflects 42.5%. They're all done now. These numbers go to the West Hartford Bloomfield Health Department. A public clinic is being held every Monday at the Bloomfield Senior Center. And for those who are interested, please call for information. They will be speaking with the health district with regard to availability and timeframes at 860-561-7900. And our mayor of Bloomfield is planning in the not too distant future 2 COVID-19 discussions on the green, which will hopefully the first one will be scheduled the end of May and the following one in June. And the idea behind that, and more details will follow, is that people can ask questions about their concern, about availability, any question about COVID-19 and especially the vaccination program for people who live in Bloomfield. Those questions can be asked and answered in those opportunities. So more information with regard to the dates will be forthcoming. And that's all we have.
Michelle, if I may ask a question, how do Bloomfield numbers compare with the state of Connecticut, if you know?
Those numbers are available for this particular report. I just concentrated on Bloomfield's.
Thank you.
If I might, Madam
Yes.
Chair, just a question to follow up on Michelle's discussion of the maintenance and zoning compliance. We can have as strong a compliance and zoning set of regulations, but I'd be most interested to make sure that we have an enforcement aspect of this and that it is be as strong as possible, because I personally am getting upset by some of the things that I'm seeing, and I think it's mostly things we don't need a zoning enforcement. If some property becomes a dumping yard, it's a dumping yard in a residence. We need the enforcement, and that needs to be part of this regulation.
Well, thank you, Steve. With regard to, most planners consider the enforcement part of the compliance heading. So I didn't specifically say that, but
Okay.
It is intended for sure, because that's one of the toughest parts to achieve with any kind of consistency. So yes, it will be included.
Thank you, Michelle.
Mhm.
Yeah, just my one comment on this, unless and until there's a commitment by those people who make those decisions to staff positions, to staff a position properly, full-time, with authority to make some changes, we're not going to see enforcement. And this is,
Well, that was the reason that I mentioned Phil's comments throughout our discussion being so important, because to say that we want something, that's fine, but to bring it about with regard to budgetary issues, staffing issues, and all of the other issues that are attenuated with neighborhood issues and how these things are communicated and how they are effectively brought about is no easy task. So yes, all of those things are important to the program.
I mean, the town planners department produces a tremendous amount of income for the town. And if nothing else, thank God that Jose is okay, but this should be a wake-up call to everybody that we do not have redundancy in the department. And when we have a key person who is not available, we have trouble functioning. And it's I said, I hope council pays attention to what's going on. Thank you, Michelle. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Any new business?
Phil had his hand up, I think, in a moment,
Bill?
but he's muted.
Phil had.
I just wanted to bring everybody up to date a little bit on the zoning enforcement activities. We had a good finalist that we were looking at. At the last moment, we were outbid by the town that he currently is working in. And so we're now back out on the street looking for a zoning enforcement officer to replace Mike Casilla, who retired in December, the end of the year. Mike is back working for us 2 days a week. We're trying to get him to come back maybe 3 days a week. So that's just kind of an update on the zoning enforcement thing. I'd just like to reiterate Bonnie's comments concerning redundancy and so forth and staffing. It's a particular problem, particularly at different times like this when you have somebody out for an extended period of time. I also want to just bring up the nexus of aggressive enforcement and not aggressive enforcement. And we went through a period several years ago where we ramped up aggressive enforcement, and those that were being enforced upon started appearing in front of the town council or in front of some of the boards and commissions and subcommittees of the council. And the council didn't like that, and naturally so. It's aggressive people coming in and talking. So it's really a balance of trying to work with people to get things accomplished. The courts are not friendly participants in these types of issues. They would prefer not to see them. They're looked upon as de minimis and a problem of the town, not a problem that the courts really need to be dealing with, and they tend to be very lenient. So we spend a lot of time, energy, and effort sometimes trying to correct things. But it's something we're working on, and hopefully we'll get somebody in shortly to take over from Mike Casilla as we move forward. Thank you.
And Bill, thank you. Was there also, I have a note at the meeting that we talked about the subcommittee on administration looking into adding an appeal process. Could you comment on that?
Well, part of the whole issue is the current regulatory setup that we have, both with the zoning enforcement, but also with the housing code, the involvement with the health district. The health district enforces part of our housing code. This was changed a number of years ago to require a police officer be part of the process. And the appeals, part of the appeals structure was removed from the code at that particular point in time with the idea that it would move through the courts more than it would through a administrative appeals process. So Mark Needleman, our town attorney, along with Jose and the health district, Ryan at the health district, have been working on modifying this. The Administration Education Subcommittee of the Town Council has a proposed changes that they're reviewing. They reviewed them at their April meeting. There was so much on the agenda, they didn't review it at the May meeting last week or earlier this week. And essentially they're going to be scheduling a special meeting either later this month or it'll go into June for further discussion on modifying the existing regulatory enforcement provisions of both the housing code and potentially the zoning enforcement aspects of it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding this? Okay, thank you, Michelle. Any commissioner member updates? All right. Public comment.
Did we skip new business or did I miss that?
I said new business, I didn't hear anything. Do you have new business?
Well, the only thing I'd like to say by way of new business is I really think the commission ought to officially send good wishes to Jose and for his speedy and complete recovery.
Yes, here.
And I think that should be reflected in our minutes.
Okay, I have been sending that, but if you would like me to, I'd be happy to send that on behalf of the commission.
Great idea.
Okay. I'm telling you, you never appreciate what somebody does until all of a sudden they're not doing it suddenly like this. Thank God this is a temporary situation. But I will take care of that, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other new business or member updates? Okay. Public comment. David has his hand up. David Mann. Unmute yourself,
Thank you.
please. There you go. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you and good morning to everybody. I'm sorry I got on the call a little bit late. I was listening to a portion of the discussion with regard to the tax abatement on West Newbury. Interesting. We're talking, it looks like a warehouse development because there was no particular end user, although Pepperidge Farm was identified. It calls to, again, the need for us to define the types of uses that we should be really looking for tax abatement, the ones that provide benefits to the town as in addition to the tax benefits, of course, which are originally outlined in the tax abatement ordinance. I didn't hear any commentary about whether it's going to be energy efficient or that was another reason for a tax abatement. So I think that's something going forward we need to spend more energy on. With regard to the commercial district, I think that's just a proposal at this point. I'm not even clear as to whether or not there is a commercial district. I think this is a proposed concept that would have been enacted had the Cottage Grove development been approved, but I'm not certain on that. And I think it's extremely important that we move slowly as you have decided to do, because it does pose some difficult problems with respect to the town center and to the adjacent neighborhoods. The other thing I wanted to comment on was the arts. I think Kevin did say the council last night did appoint certain people to the Arts Commission. I can name them if that's of interest. In addition to Mr. Ferger, was Amanda Roy and Stephen Richmond and Stanwick Cromwell. So those are the four. There are four people. I don't know how many the full complement there will be to initiate activity, but at least those are the four that we have already. As mentioned, there are some positions for Republicans. If they're not going to fill them, it'll probably be independents that will fill them. In terms of the code enforcement, very important need. We've had that problem for a long time, as Commissioner Zellman has pointed out. It's very difficult to get enforcement, and when a policeman walks up the front lawn, you've got problems. And I think that this new ordinance ought to be something that the community should agree on in terms of these kinds of conditions that should not be acceptable. Again, in terms of staffing, I absolutely agree with you. We had no indication. We've been talking about succession plans in many different divisions where the town staff is loaded with chiefs, but without no Indians. And I think that's been a problem. And it's not a matter of penny pinching. It's a matter of coming up with a better organization so that we can get the job done that we say we're going to do. So thank you, and appreciate your good work.
Okay, thank you, David. Staff report, I'm assuming that would have been Jose. No one else has that, am I correct? Anything else going in York? Denise, anything else that you folks need to talk to us about?
No, but if you want to open it up to Mike, we've been working with a couple small businesses in town, still continue to work with them.
There was can you hear me?
Yes, you're on, Mike.
Okay. There was quite a bit of work done on the latest drafts of the TIF policy during April, and up to a meeting on, I think it was April 20th, with the Land Use Commission to review the latest draft of the Mike Andriana's TIF policy. So Mike, Andriana, Don, Jose, and I have been working on that pretty steadily. I think we're very close to having it. Mike Andriana circulated an updated draft last Wednesday, I guess it was, and we're currently going through it. So I think we're close to having something that we can say that we think is ready for consideration.
And is there still interest? Have you had some interest, Mike? You did at one point say people were asking about this.
Interest in a specific application for it, or
available?
No, not for the tax increment financing. Although I think Jose has had a conversation with someone about the potential to use it once it's in place.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it from our end.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike, and thank your group for supporting us and trying to move forward. I'm getting to you, Michelle. Okay, Michelle?
I just wanted to add that of late I have missed having overview reports from Mike Goman and his staff with regard to not only what's going on in Bloomfield, but what's going on in the overview of our national economy and things that we can expect in the road ahead. And now in particular, with everything that's going on about either businesses permanently closed or businesses opening, I hope he will continue with that, and we will make sure that there's time in our agenda to hear from him, because I find them not only excellent communication to keep the EDC up to date, but also educational as well, particularly with regard to the manner in which we can hope to attract new businesses and retain the businesses we have. Because especially with regard to retention, a lot of that's up in the air until this all shakes out, to understand who we have on board and who we don't. So I would like to hear more from Mike and his staff with regard to our business environment.
I would support that as well. And apart from personal interest, it gives us a context. For instance, their reports over months gave us a framework in which we could understand that Ruby Tuesdays, for instance, was not going to be replaced by a food purveyor. And unfortunately, in terms of diversity of development in town, we see a development which is excellent, but not what we might have preferred, and it gave us a context. So thank you, Michelle. I would like to see that happen as well.
Yeah, and I tertiary, yes, I also agree. And Mike, maybe we can, since we already have an agenda item for the report, maybe we could have that as a monthly report, if that would not be a problem for you.
Sure, absolutely. We do a lot of that, and as you can imagine, the world is a moving dynamic target right at the moment in terms of the real estate activity and what all of this means. But it's the recovery that we're seeing at the moment appears to be very robust. It's a little, to some degree, it's a little disconcerting because you wonder if it's a bubble, you know?
Yeah.
But regardless, there's just a lot going on. Every market we're working in about 20 different communities right now. And I mean, every market we work in, there is a significant increase in the amount of development activity on the one hand. On the other hand, there's also a significant increase in the amount of distress in certain segments, particularly retail and hotel. And so it's making for a very interesting environment for our work at the moment, and happy to do that at each meeting. If you want to give me 10 minutes or something, I can.
I would appreciate that. The books that are going to be written, Mike, you know, this is a turning point in a lot of ways.
It is in many ways. I mean, you know, just to touch on, to some degree, I'm glad that Bloomfield doesn't have a regional mall. I mean,
yeah.
If you look around the state, the number of regional malls that are seeing 80 to 90% declines in their value, and they're going into bankruptcy. I mean, it's a dramatic change in that sector, just to pick on retail alone, not to talk about hotels and some of the other sectors. So anyway, it'll be a good conversation. Happy to have you put it on the agenda, and you know, I'll be ready to do an overview for you at the next meeting.
Great, appreciate it. Anything else? Any other comments or questions from anyone? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to call for an adjournment. And before that, just remind you, our next meeting is Tuesday, June 8th. I don't know. I will continue to update the commission on Jose's progress. I don't know whether he will be, joining us then or not, but hopefully between Denise and I, we'll be able to muddle through doing the Zoom meeting, right, Denise?
Yeah, I will. I'll polish up on my Zoom skills.
All right, appreciate it. So, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, second. Jerry.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Happy Memorial Day. Get everybody vaccinated so we can be back together again. And these are better times that are coming, so we should celebrate them and enjoy and embrace them. Take care.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you all. All be well.
Thank you.
Bye.
Nice to see everyone.